Tony Leonardi and the Youngstown State University Jazz Ensemble.
Professor of Music, Director of Bands and Orchestra at YSU's Dana School of Music, Conductor of W.D. Packard Concert Band, Music Director of YSU's Youth Symphony Orchestra, and Guest High School Symphony Orchestra and Concert Band Conductor in over 35 states. Here is my interview with Dr. Stephen Gage.
Hi, Paula. Oh, gosh, you look like you did when you were 20 years old.
Well, thank you.
You can't be 20 anymore, but the math
21.
doesn't work. Yeah, 20. Okay, you're right. All right, 21. So what a sweetheart you are, Paula. What a joy you were for your dad. And
Oh, thank you.
what an honor it is for me to be part of this. Thanks so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you participate in this. I can't thank you enough. And
Please call me Steve during this interview, okay?
okay.
As hard as it might be, I would prefer that you do that.
Okay, sure.
All right?
So, Steve, how have you been? What are you up to lately? And how are things going with COVID? Are you still able to do at least some things with music right now?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, Paula, because I actually have been home this year. I had a bout number 2 of a disease called Marfan's and a series of heart procedures last summer. And oh yeah, life and its ailments. But I'm doing great. And so I haven't worked this year, but the 2 months of COVID working that I did, Paula, were not fun for me. You know, I'm more of your dad's generation in that we're one-trick ponies. You know, we walk into a room with anxious young people and we do the best we can to get the best music out of them. So I'm
Right.
grateful in some ways that I haven't. But the school, you know, they're doing the best they can, Paula. It's
Yeah.
very difficult, as you can imagine.
Oh, yes, yes. And I'm so sorry for what you've had to go
Oh,
through.
it's okay.
Oh, gosh.
I have the best spouse on the planet, I think, and she and my kids have gotten me through this. So I'm
Oh,
I'm
that's
all good.
wonderful.
I'm all good, Paula.
Oh, well, please know that I will keep you in my thoughts and prayers. And
Thanks so much.
if there's anything I can do, please always reach out to.
Thoughts and prayers sound good to me.
Okay.
And that smile, that $1 million smile, I like that.
Oh, thank you.
You had that when you were a little kid, you know. You did.
I think it's my dad's. I don't know. I think I
Yeah.
hear that I got it from him.
Yeah, he has. Well, my daughter actually had your mom at school. You know, my kids went to Poland school, so yeah.
Really?
Yeah. She must have been
my-
right at the end of your mom's tenure as a teacher there. But yeah, she used to talk about Mrs. Repko all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I will have to give her a call as soon as we get off the phone.
Please do, and tell her that Claudia's doing great.
I will.
Yeah, she's
Definitely.
doing great.
Oh,
Small world, Paula.
it is. It really is. Well, during one of my interviews, I'm trying to remember who told me the story, but I guess rumor has it that when you first interviewed for the position at YSU,
Mm-hmm.
my dad wouldn't let you leave until you committed because he wanted you there so badly.
Yeah, it was, well, first of all, I fell in love with your dad when I watched him conduct the YSU Jazz Ensemble in the Syracuse Civic Center. In the late 80s, I was the president of the New York State Jazz Educators Association. And Tony and I had a lot of mutual friends in central New York, as you can imagine. And they came up in the previous year. I think the Eastman Band played there, and 2 years before that, the Ithaca Band. And, everybody up there was pretty puffy about upstate New York until Youngstown took the stage and never let go. I have a lot of connections uh, to your dad because of the people that I know and grew up. People like Joe Raposo. I mean, those are names that you may not know. But the Chris brothers, Michael especially, he taught in Cortland, New York, which is pretty close to Auburn, where I taught. And his brother Bill taught in Oswego. This is getting convoluted here. And I knew Bill really well, and I didn't know Mike quite so well. But Mike had hosted our jazz ensemble actually at a festival he hosted in Cortland in the mid to late 80s. And he told me, says, Steve, you got to bring the Youngstown Jazz Band to the Syracuse Civic Center. And it was unbelievable, Paula. I mean, it sounded like the Woody Herman Band. I mean, it was unreal. Everybody came out of that room with their mouths on the floor, including me.
And what year was this?
This would have been the late 80s. I'm going to guess it was either the spring of 87 or 88, one of those 2 years. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a really special. And they were just stunning, truly stunning. And that's true. If I can, I'll share the anecdote about my interview.
Yes, please.
One of the kids that was here at the time, Rocco Criazzo, was playing trombone in your father's band. And my predecessor, Les Hicken, had retired. And so they had an opening. And Mike was Rocco's trombone teacher. And he told Rocco to call me and see if I was interested. We were living in Kansas. I was teaching at a state school out there. And it was pretty late in the spring. And so Stephanie and I talked about it, and we decided we would come. And they let both of us come, which is very unusual, Paula. That doesn't happen hardly ever. But it was late enough in the year, I think they were nervous about getting someone who would be willing to come here and commit to the job. So we actually drove out because we were in Illinois. I was trying to finish my doctorate. And we spent 2 days here, stayed at the inn that is now the president's home on the campus, and had a fantastic day working with students and meeting faculty and getting to know people. And just, I didn't have anything to lose, Paula. I had a good job. I didn't have to come. But I just felt, when I heard that Youngstown band in the Civic Center, I always thought after that, so if they ever ask me to come there, I'm going to go. So sure enough, we had the interview, and we were staying up in the inn, and we had the closing interview. We were going to have about an hour to ourselves, and then we were going to go to the Springfield Grill, which is a pretty typical interview closure. And your dad and Mike Christ and Jim Mumble came and sat on this big canopy bed in the mansion and sat there until Stephanie and I said yes.
Oh, wow.
True story. And I had fallen in love with Tony before that. There's just not a lot of people in the world, Paula, like that. I've met some amazing musicians and teachers. I've been around, Lord knows, maybe I was thinking today, I was talking to John Vanesky, who's a big fan of your dad also. And I said, I probably had 1,000 students while I've taught here. But I have never met a lot of people like your dad. His passion for what he did, his extraordinary talent. I mean, that sometimes I think that gets sidetracked by the fireball that your father was, and also his passion for his students and his love for music, his love for YSU. It was genuine, and I saw that in his eyes when we were sitting on that canopy bed, and I have never regretted coming here, Paula. Not 1 minute for 28 years. And Tony had a lot. If he hadn't been here, Paula, I would not have come here. I'm just saying that to you
Wow.
as well. I watched him with the kids, and I heard something really magical in that band. And I knew that they maybe didn't get the same kind of kids that the Eastman School would get, or just different clientele, the nature of this city. But he had some crackerjack players, and the band was so tight and so fiery. It was magnificent. I remember it like it was yesterday, 32 years ago. And I have spent the last 28 years trying to live up to the great model that your father provided in music making at Youngstown State. I don't think I had a bigger advocate in my career than him. I was thinking today about a concert that we played, probably the third year I was here in Powers Auditorium, and we played Pines of Rome, which is apparently that was one of your dad's favorite pieces. And of course, he played in the symphony for many years. So he was an orchestral musician, and people forget that. One of the great legacies of Tony Leonardi is his bass students. I mean, holy cow. We're talking scary good. 2 in the Pittsburgh Symphony, for instance. But so we played this Pines of Rome concert, and he and Andrea came around after the concert was over. He had these great big tears in his eyes. He gave me this hug and kissed me on the cheek. He said, "Stephen, we finally have what we deserve here." And it was, Paula, that was validation for me. I have so much respect for Tony. I used to sit. You'll love this story. All right. I'm a talker, so tell me when to be quiet. Okay.
No.
I did the marching band in those days, and it ended at 2:50. And so some days I would sit and watch Coach Tressel, who was winning football games like crazy in those days. And I watched how he functioned with his students, with his staff, and with the players. And then, of course, on game days, I'd watch him function with the students up live and in person, because I could be on the sideline. And I adored him and still do. And if I didn't go to football practice, I went to Jazz One and watched Tony work with the band. I had already taught for, let me do the math here, 2 years in Warsaw, 9 in Auburn, and 3 in Kansas. Like 13 or 14 years. And I had a lot to learn. And I realized this as I was preparing for this, that I've always had mentors in all 4 of my jobs. And they happen to all be men, but they could have very easily been women. And they all have a few things in common. One of them is their love for their students, their love for the art form, the love for the institution where they worked, and a sincerity about making people achieve the very, very best that they can. And how they did it was everyone was completely different. Tony's style was different than anyone I had seen in a long time. I had some teachers like Tony as a young musician, because frankly, Paula, that was not that gregarious, kind of in your face, perpetual energy, fireballs shooting out all the time was not unusual when I was a kid. That's how music teachers taught. And so nothing surprised me about that. Obviously from time to time there would be a moderate explosion in the room. But the kids, they took it. And the reason they took it is because they knew that he loved them. He loved them enough that they would invest their very best every day and between rehearsals. Your dad stood out in the corridor 10 minutes before rehearsal started. Because like me, he believes a late musician is a fired musician. An on-time musician is late, and an early musician is going to keep the gig. And he's right about that. Teaching that to people when they're 18 to 22 isn't a bad idea. It's true in business, right, Paula? I'm sure. I believe you. And so, he would stand out there, and he'd walk in the room just before 3 o'clock, maybe 30 seconds. And he'd make sure the door was closed and locked. Paula, you didn't come in after 3. You stayed out. And if you missed rehearsal because you were late, I can't even imagine. So, I saw this going on, and I saw this high bar. And while maybe I wasn't built to be Tony Leonardi in terms of my deportment or my, fire, I've always kind of felt a little bit Italian in my life, but I know that I'm not, and I couldn't have pulled it off like he did. I just couldn't. He was on the road for all those years, and there was such candor between those players. That's how your dad grew up as a musician. Total honesty. And those are the things that I have tremendous respect for, not just in Tony Leonardi, but in all the teachers that I have admired in my career. They all have those things in different forms. The way they shared those things sometimes was slightly different, but there was never anything that came out of Tony's mouth that wasn't generated by love.
Right.
I'm absolutely convinced of it. The way he talked about you and Chris, always with love, and he was a great model for me as a human being, Paula. I had an 8:00 class, conducting class on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, and he had improvisation at 9:00. And invariably, I would become, our office is right next to each other. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
So I was wonderful. And so I would come out of the rehearsal room and turn right, and Tony was coming down the hall. And I could always tell, whether he was mad at me or not. And he was mad at me sometimes. Okay. And it was okay. I needed him, Paula. I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be that good. I didn't want to be just another person that took the job at YSU and survived and took my paycheck and ran. I wanted to have the kind of program and students and music making situations like Tony. And I aspired to that every day of my career there, Paula. 100%. I have no illusions of grandeur, but I can tell you that he was and remains one of my primary mentors in my life and career. And when you said I could come on this, I was tickled pink. I really was, because I loved Tony. His last week of his life, Mike Christ and I were on the porch, that beautiful porch they had in their home, he and Andrea, and we sat out there, and it was a really sunny, beautiful day, and I didn't know what we were going to talk about, and all he talked about was YSU. All he talked about was YSU. All he talked about was the students from YSU, the ones that were there, the ones that used to go there. He talked about the future. And I just haven't seen that kind of integrity in enough people in my life. Paula, you don't know me very well, but I promise you that I have done the very best I can to be part of this valley and part of that university music school, and attempted to have that same level of excellence. And I follow my students. I'm a ridiculous Facebook person, as you know, and Instagram, and I love the kids dearly. And I tell them, I heard Tony say those things to his students. There were these comments sometimes that were brutally honest, but they were deserved. Now, the delivery was unique, Paula. Okay. And there were tears from time to time, even in the guys in the band. But no one took offense to it. I guarantee every person you talk to about your dad always does it with reverence. If somebody didn't like the way he treated them, it's because they weren't doing what they were supposed to do, Paula.
Right. Right.
There's enough low achievers in the world, right?
Yes.
Tony Leonardi didn't want to put any more of them in the world.
Right.
Okay. And, and that level of commitment to his students and to his craft. This is a guy that taught middle school band in Poland and Canfield. And when we moved here, I asked him which community we should live in. He said, Poland. I think you'll fit in better there. This is the kind of guy Tony is, and so we moved to Poland, Paula. And I haven't met, I don't know that I've ever met anybody like him, really. But the people that I truly respect have the same personal qualities as your dad, no doubt about it.
How would you describe him to someone who didn't have the chance to meet him? For example, my friends today,
Yeah.
where I live now and in the community I live in, I can only relay stories to them or these interviews to them and share recordings with them, but they never had the chance to meet him. So how would you explain him?
Well, like his beautiful daughter, all they had to do is look in his eyes,
Thank
and
you.
they saw him. I mean, that's something that I do, because there's not always there's sometimes a lack of sincerity in people, and I don't quite understand that. Maybe their life circumstances are such that they don't have comfort. But Tony Leonardi knew what he was here for, and he expected everyone around him to do their best. And when they didn't, they knew it. I suspect from time to time as a child, we all do things sometimes that disappoint our parents. And I suspect you guys knew when he wasn't happy.
Oh, yes.
But it was with love, right? I mean, and even sometimes tough love. And that's how Tony used tough love as well as anybody I've ever known. It was really old school music teacher, almost coach kind of approach, and I wouldn't, Tony and I both love baseball, so I can talk about sports, I think, to you. But I think he understood that, he was kind of at the center of this universe. But in order to make it work, he had to have people around him that were going to accept the responsibility of what he wanted them to do. And he had so much experience before he ever came to YSU. His bar was so high that the kids probably felt they couldn't reach it. What they didn't know was that nobody enjoyed their success more than he did. He talked about his alumni with reverence, Paula. I mean, it was right up to his dying day. And I think that level of humanity, sometimes there's a coarseness in the way people project themselves. And Tony could do that. He gave me the business a few times. But it was always behind closed doors, Paula, just me and him. And when I left the room, I was reminded that I loved him and he loved me, and it was okay.
Oh,
I was fine with that. I mean, I didn't want somebody to stroke me that, I wanted people to tell me how I could do a better job. And I wanted people around me like Tony who understood that if you invest sufficiently well, there will be an outcome that is rewarding. You might not get everything you want, but you're going to do better. And anything less than that from you is not acceptable. The kids that were tossed out of those rehearsals weren't doing what they're supposed to do, Paula. Okay, they just weren't. And maybe a little bit of Tony Leonardi and his peers should creep back into education. I have wondered about this for the last 10 or 15 years. The stories about the chairs, they're true. Okay, the music stands, they're true. So you can't pretend, right? And you can talk about, yeah. I mean, you can talk about these with a smile because the people who shared those stories with you adore your dad, right? And they might have been the person that made it happen. And that level of respect, that's rare, Paula. Right? We spend way too much with these things now. This is all right. We don't talk to each other, Paula. We don't sit around in a circle. We don't share. I suspect you had family time, and and being around Tony when he wasn't here had to be rewarding. I didn't have enough opportunities to do that, but the ones I did, I loved it. I loved sitting at the MVR with him. I loved talking about the Indians with him. And I mean, there was a human side to your dad that was, and his love for his kids and Andrea. I mean, I didn't, know him when he was married to your mom, obviously, but he adored Andrea and he adored his children, and he had tremendous respect and pride for what you were accomplishing and how he perceived that you were going to make the world a whole lot better place. And that's what Tony did every day of his life. He made the world a lot better place.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And that's the kind of person he is, Paula. Okay, and he was like that, and it's real. It's not pretend. There's a candor to the guy that is so vivid, right? I mean, Tony Leonardi was bigger than life. We use that word too often, but Tony Leonardi was truly bigger than life.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I wanted to ask you, going back to your days in New York, are you originally from Syracuse?
I'm from just to the west of Syracuse, but I spent 9 years in Auburn, New York, which is probably 30 minutes southwest of Syracuse. And all my friends, I had a whole, I went to Fredonia for undergrad school, and a lot of those kids came back up to Central and Western New York to teach. So we were, it was ridiculous the time that we spent together. And those are still some of my dearest friends. And they're great teachers, great musicians. Syracuse has a very rich tradition, especially of jazz. And these people that I mentioned before, like Joe Raposo and some of these other folks that your dad played with as a kid, they are legends up there. As was Tony.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know until I asked you some questions that when you responded back, I had no idea that you guys had that connection of upstate New York.
Well, that's how this works, right, Paula?
Yeah.
I'm a person of faith, and I think God works in mysterious ways. And I think if we pay attention, we make the kind of personal connections that allow us. And that Tony brought his band to Syracuse in 1988, that Rocco Criazzo came here to study with Michael Christ, that Mike's brother Bill and I were good friends, that I heard that band. I got to introduce them, those are not accidents. And then coming and spending the day, even though I think it might have been June. And so, they had kind of kids come in because the students wanted to know who their teachers were going to be and teacher was going to be. And so they all came in. But just being around Tony and Jim Umble and Mike Christ and some of the other folks that were here, Joe Edwards, I think Darla Funk might have been on that search committee. These were great human beings. And I just felt like this was going to be a place where Stephanie and I could settle down and raise a family, which we've been able to do, and have a life that was comfortable and meaningful in a school with the kind of students that I wanted to teach, and it has worked out beautifully.
Oh, that's fantastic. So before all of this happened with you in the last year or so, what were you involved in? What things were you doing? Even say the past 10 years, what have you been?
Yeah, my schedule's a little ridiculous, Paula. I've done the wind ensemble ever since I came here, and that's our top concert band. It's about 50 students, and they have exceeded my expectations many, many, many times. That's our premier group. And I watched the Tonys put out CDs, so I released CDs, Paula, 9 of them. I sent a couple album covers to you. And I took the kids on tours because I knew that Tony took his bands to various festivals and events. We played in Carnegie Hall twice, once in 2005 and once in 2015. We played at 10 state music conferences and 2 national conferences. Most importantly, it had some amazing young people in it who were taught by the artist faculty that we have at Dana and mentored. And so that was my primary job. From that, I taught small groups, which is what all they can do now is small groups, as you can imagine. The last 7 years, I was in charge of the symphony orchestra, which had a number of directors. And, I just kind of felt when they all retired that maybe it was a good time for me to step in, and I have loved every minute of it. So that's 7 years. And then I've also been, since 1993, the youth symphony conductor here in Youngstown, which has spawned many, many, many Dana students. I did also the Stambaugh Youth Concert Band for about 10 years. And since 2010, I've been in charge of conducting the Packard Band. So, and with the spare time that I had, I tried to make sure that I was the best dad and father I could be.
Oh.
It was a crazy schedule, Paula.
Your accomplishments are so incredible, and I want you to know that even though we don't know each other that well, I follow you on Facebook. and the level of excellence that you talk about with regard to my father, you have hit that exponentially. I see how beloved you are. Your students, I mean, you're beyond a hero to them. Their love for you is like nothing I've ever seen for anybody, even professors that I've had in school, and other people that I've known, people that have touched my life and have inspired me. You are an incredible human being. You're an incredible person. And my dad, I know, is so incredibly proud of you and all that you've accomplished. So right back at you for everything that you said.
I really, really, I mean, I won't lie to you. I looked at him as a second father. I would watch him work, Paula, I would marvel. And I always went to the concerts. I never missed them. And they were packed houses. It was like a rock show, you know, and I had to have a seat saved for me. And I just wish that my son could have played in Tony's band. I feel like he set such a high bar. And while there have been some accolades, I don't think there have been enough. There should be a Tony Leonardi wing in that building. That school was on his back for many, many years, and you know that. And I'm not mad at or disappointed. I just wanted to help share the burden. I felt like we would, and we did. We worked really well together. He was at a stage of his career where everybody's admiration for him was so high. And, but he opened up doors for me with meeting people, and his guest artists and alumni would come to the school, and he would have me come to the sessions. I thought of myself a little bit as a jazz drummer, and I even played a gig with your dad, which was kind of a scary night. Yeah.
Well, you have to tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. It was a faculty gig, and Joe Parlink wasn't able to do it. And so it was in the Chrisman room at Stamp Auditorium, and I was sweating bullets because he was tough on drummers, Paula. Really tough on drummers. And so I set my drums up, and I only got 2 evil looks the whole night. I thought it was pretty doggone good. He had a way of looking at you, Paula, it was clear that he wasn't a happy guy.
Oh, yes.
And it would have been nice to disagree, but he was right. And I was sad that I didn't do that more. There were lots of reasons. Among other ones, Parlink was, there are few people in the world like Joe Parlink, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Completely different than Tony and his delivery, but that same high integrity, lovable, dude they had such a great thing here. Think about this, Paula. Growing up, you had Joe on the drums, you had trumpet. Pelly. Oh, my goodness. Soto might have been the finest trumpet teacher in America. I'm not kidding. Tony was the best big band director in America. I'll tell you that. There's no doubt about it. And I worked with Rayburn Wright at Eastman. I mean, I spent some time with people, and nobody could do with kids what Tony could do with them. There was a guy, of course, Mike Christ, and his predecessor, Vern Kagerice, taught trombone here. And I think Joe Edwards started the saxophones, and then they brought Jim Umble. So they had all the instruments that he needed. And then, of course, he taught bass. And so they, and Parlink drums. I mean, he made sure that the infrastructure was going to allow. And in fact, in those days, Paula, there were 3 bands. And my first 2 quarters, I conducted the 3rd jazz ensemble. That was
You did?
Yeah, the 3rd band, yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it was, it wasn't like it sounded like jazz or anything, but I was so excited to be, I had been a high school director, Paula, and we had a really good jazz program at Auburn High School. And so it was fun, and he knew that. But I remember the day that in the 2nd quarter, I was trying to figure out how I was going to sort out my schedule and time, sitting in his office. And I think he was happy with what I was doing with the kids. But I think he knew what my real mission there was going to be. And I was happy. I was sad not to keep doing it because I liked being part of his magnificent team. Okay. but I also understood that I had a different goal, and but I had a blast doing it. In fact, I wrote a chart for my son Matthew called "Blues for Shorty" that we played on one of the concerts. So yeah,
Oh my gosh.
and we had to clear the tunes with your dad. You know, did you know that?
Sure it
Oh, yeah. We had to take the tunes to Tony to show what we were going to play, and it's okay. You know, I was so honored to be part of that little, triumvirate. But it was so special. The school was a lot different than it is today, and I think it's because Tony isn't there. If the faculty members didn't like or say good things about your dad, it's because they were jealous, Paula. I'm sorry. If they took an objective look at what happened with him, his program, and those kids, and the careers that they are having, that's spectacular.
I know.
And the bass playing, I mean, are you kidding me? These kids were just, I told you my office was next door to Tony's, and of course the way our schedule worked was there's 15-minute lessons, right? So at 10 to the hour, the kids were always outside his door ready to come in for their lunch. And then they would go in, maybe 3 minutes till or 4 minutes till. And I would sit there and wait. And you couldn't really hear through the wall, but if the kid wasn't prepared, okay, I would hear something that wasn't, soft. It was poignant, let's put it that way. And the next thing, the door opened, and the kid in his bass or her bass walked through the door, and Tony followed him upstairs to the practice room, where he deposited them and made sure that they knew next week at that time they needed to have it together.
Right.
Okay, that's not a bad thing. And they chose to go to music school, and and they knew when they came to study with him, if they weren't aware of the legacy that he had as a teacher and musician and the standards. He himself was a fantastic player. I mean, he was great. So he expected nothing less from them. Phil Palumbi was the star bass player when I first came, and he was such a laid-back person in so many ways.
Yeah.
And Greg Parnell was playing drum set, and Greg's probably still that little boy that was inside that body when he was playing. But those two together, and Elton Merrill and Joe
Oh,
Kanowitz, those rhythm sections were to die.
unbelievable.
They
Yeah.
really were. I
Yeah.
mean, nobody knew how to get out of a rhythm section what Tony knew. And there was no room for anything less than that. The
Right.
subsequent players had to get close to that or they weren't going to stay around. And they did not. They just didn't. And, and people could say, well, that was, that's not being fair. I don't think that's true. I think what's true is if Tony knew that you were really working hard to play at the level that you were playing, and you were sincere about it, and you were going to work between listening and practicing, then he lived with, not being quite Greg Parnell. But if he felt like you were letting down, he was going to get somebody else. So those drummers were tough as nails, and they're all doing fantastically well. That's not an accident.
I know.
The bass players, same thing. I mean, I've watched it. Now they're all adults, of course, and 40s and 50s, and some of these kids are, they've had families, but they're all that same level of integrity, and that comes from having a teacher like Tony Leonardi. That's not an accident. I mean, that is truly, and yeah, I mean, I know that there has been some special events for your dad, but there always should be. Youngstown and Tony Leonardi were inexplicably connected. People talked about Tony Leonardi and the YSU Jazz Ensemble in their profession, and they should have, and they still do. It's that level of excellence, Paula. It's not omnipresent in education, sadly, or even in music education. And I, that it left a huge impression on me. I'll tell you that. To not ever let my guard down, not to, don't accept Steve. I think sometimes about if Tony heard this, would he have approved? Because if he didn't, he was going to tell me, Paula. Okay? In private, all right? Man to man. It's okay. I can take it. And I have missed him. He passed away much too young. I would have loved to have another 10 years. He deserved at least 10 more, whether he was teaching or just living and showing up here. But that's not how God's plan was for Tony. And he went out breathing fire. He just if you're going to go, it's a good way to go.
Right, right, exactly. So that's exactly what I feel too. I mean, for a long time, he thought he was going to go back and finish his last semester there. And I think he really counted on that. But I think that's also what kept him going for so long, because
Sure.
they gave him, the span of time that he had left, and he made it as far as he could. But I think him thinking that he would go back is what kept him going for as long as it did.
I believe it. Well, my mother died of pancreatic cancer too, and she,
Oh, I'm
like Tony,
sorry.
oh, that's okay. It's a horrible way to go, right?
Oh,
And my mother was everything to me. I was a mommy's boy. I still am. And and but so I had been through that, what he was going through with my mom, and so I could see, the slow deterioration of your body. I mean, you just, but the thing is even in his dying days, he still was breathing fire. He passion and love and sincerity, and sitting out that porch, and his eyes were a little glazed, but there were tears in them, and the things that he said to me that day, I will never forget. And it's true about sitting up in that room. I mean, he wasn't going to leave until I told him I was going to come there and teach. Poor Stephanie had no choice in the matter. But she,
and now look at your legacy. Look at
yeah,
all that you've done and all the lives that
thanks.
you've touched.
Well,
It's amazing.
it's just that keep the train moving,
Yes,
and integrity is something you can't buy, right? It's
that's for
something that
sure.
you acquire as a young person, and you use it as an incentive to do the best you can every day. And that was Tony. Every day. If he didn't feel good, he still went to school, and or he provided for his family, or he, did whatever gigs he had to do to keep his show going. And he, in the meantime, he got this music ed degree, and he taught little kids, and I mean, so he understood how to teach people, right? If you can teach a seventh grader, you can teach a college kid. Uh, that's true. So I think a lot of times we have this misnomer in our society that people are born to do this, and I do think that there's truth to it. I think Michael Jordan was obviously born to play basketball, and Tony Leonardi was born to be a great musician. But had he not worked really hard, he wouldn't have been as great of a musician or as great of a teacher. And that, so he expected that from everybody else, Paula, and he's not wrong. He was right. I I I like people. I have my prejudices are simple. I don't like mean people, Paula. Okay, and I don't like people who don't do the best they can do. It's that simple for me.
Right.
And I think Tony probably was very much in line with that. He may have
Yes.
had some other things, but I mean, I'm sure the things that he shared with you as a little girl still resonate in your psyche each and every day. That personality, that's a real personality, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. It's just, I mean, you were blessed really to be his daughter, in my opinion. I really do think so. And,
Thank
what I know about your mom, she's such a beautiful lady. And I remember we were sitting in here one night for dinner, and Claudia said something about Mrs. Repko. And I told Stephanie, I said, is that Tony's? Yes. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so cool. So it was so cool.
Oh, that'll mean so much to her to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's a legend over there in Poland, no doubt about it.
Oh,
A beautiful
thank you.
soul, like her daughter. You are a
Thank
great
you.
combination of those two people, Paula. You really are.
Thank you. That means so much, especially from you.
Yeah. I've been blessed in my life, and I know that, and I don't take it for granted. The people I've met and the opportunities I've had, astonishing. And a lot of it comes from being in a place where students don't mind investing. They put their boots on in the morning and they work hard every day. And that's a strength. I'm happy Claudia and Brennan and Matt grew up here. So no matter where it is that they end up, they have that grit and determination, diligence, passion that people that live in this valley have. I have loved teaching the kids here because they're malleable. They'll take it. I might not have been as overt as Tony, but I've been pretty honest in my career, Paula, with my students. And I think what I have noticed is it's almost like if I wasn't that honest with them, I don't think they would have enjoyed their experiences. They wanted someone to hold them accountable for the things that they chose to be a musician. They chose to come to Youngstown. Those kids chose to go to Youngstown to be in Tony's band. So if they didn't think that there were going to be expectations, that was a error in judgment,
Right.
and I, the precursors to them were stars in the profession already, and they wanted to be part of that. And it's amazing what he did here. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Steve, for everything, your insight into working with my dad and him as a person. Thank you so much.
I truly loved your dad.
And he truly loved you.
Well,
No, he
was
would talk
special.
about you all the time.
Well, we had so many connections, and I just feel like we were supposed to work together. I just wanted it to be longer, Paula.
I know.
Selfishly, okay. But
I know.
I'm grateful for the time I had with him, and he set a bar for me that I still aspire to. I would go to those concerts. They were professional, Paula, in every respect. I mean, the level of playing, the ensemble, the solo playing, just the production, the energy, the standing room only. That's amazing.
I know.
It's truly amazing. And that was all Tony. He understood how to market. He understood how to sell his bands. He understood how to sell the medium. He understood how to build relationships with people in the community who he needed to help support what he wanted to do to get the scholarships and the kind of opportunities, the recordings, the tours. Those things aren't free. And, YSU is not a place where the money grows on trees. So you have to be creative about all that stuff. And Tony, he showed me how to do all that stuff and more.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he understood, Paul. The bigger picture for sure.
Yes, he did. Yeah, that's the type of person he was, even outside of education. I feel really lucky that I was able to learn so much about just life in general from him. And like you said, and so many others, I always think, what would he say in this situation, or what would he do in this situation? And I try to follow that and always do my best every day. Even when I don't feel like it, I'll push myself. And it's because of him.
Well, the other thing that people wouldn't see about Tony if they didn't spend enough time with him, I've said 3 things to my children basically every day of their life. Number 1, I want them to be kind. Okay? I want them to do their best, and that I sincerely love them, even when I'm not happy with what they're doing. And that's the kind of person Tony Leonardi was. He showed his kindness in the things that he did for people. And if they didn't pay attention, shame on them. Sometimes the best thing we can have happen to us. I was talking to my son today on a walk, and he and his lady friend have had a little spat. And I reminded him, that she's trying to reach out to you, Matthew, to tell you that whatever it is that you're doing is not acceptable to her. Okay? And, it's through her ire that she's expressing this. And that's called tough love, but it is love nonetheless. And that was Tony. He completely understood the human condition. Completely. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I don't know that I've ever met anybody like Tony. I have not. I've known some pretty special people, Paula, as you can imagine, but not like your dad. I'll go to my grave remembering those rehearsals. And, I will. You are so blessed to be his daughter, and he was so proud of you. Oh gosh, so proud. And I'm sure your
Thank
mom
you.
is too. Yeah, you're a beautiful soul there, Paula.
Thank you, as are you.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, you brought me to tears.
It's okay.
Thank
You
you.
deserve it. Yeah, you're welcome. What a great opportunity for you to hear from the people who love Tony about your dad. It's, the things one day we were sitting talking about the School of Music, and he said, Steve, why can't we be North Texas State? And that just threw me for a boing. I said, because we, the collective we, don't have the vision that you have, Tony. That's why. So he always was thinking bigger, and he was always thinking a better place, a better opportunity, more, not necessarily because bigger is better, but he was right. The infrastructure was perfect for Youngstown to become North Texas State. Why it didn't happen, there's a lot of reasons, Paula, and there's no sense in, but he was right. I mean, that's how your father was. He was always thinking, and he cared deeply about the school and the university. I mean, he was an alum, for heaven's sakes, and I think a lot of times when people didn't understand your dad, and I said this to you a few minutes ago, they were jealous. I'm sorry. I may, if you choose to put this on there, there may be some people that are mad at me, but I'm right. I'm right. I sat in the faculty meetings, I saw it happen. And, your father never let it get him down. He didn't lose his fire. He didn't lose his passion. Never. He did what he did for the right reasons every time. It's been an honor to be here today. And, when you asked me, I was touched beyond belief. And it just has given me several weeks of recounting my opportunities to be around your dad and think about, the impact that he left. And I had forgotten some of the things he had said, and it was, and how I have, to somewhat extent, stolen them or adapted them and used them as my own motivational tools with students and building programs and selling, marketing the school, because your dad understood all. They brought those amazing artists here. Oh my gosh, the best, finest jazz musicians in the world came here and played. I wouldn't talk about that. I mean, it was world class, seemingly every semester, every quarter. So it was, it was a real happening. The place was hopping. Mondays of jazz concerts at Dana School were electric. It started at about 9 o'clock in the morning, Paula, and it didn't end until the kids were bringing the gear back after the concert. I mean, it was 14 hours of electricity. And, it made the school, it gave the school an identity that was very, very profound in our profession. Everybody knew Tony Leonardi, Paula. Everybody. Okay. If they didn't pay attention.
So true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really true. You just look, you look content. Is that, and proud? I mean, do you feel that way? Is this giving
Oh,
you
yes.
some validation about the way you feel about your dad? Is that
So much, so
okay?
much, very
Good.
much so.
It's okay
Yeah.
to be selfish sometimes. I suspect that that's true. I can see it in your eyes, and that's wonderful. Every parent wants their children to be happy. And Tony would have wanted you to be happy, and you are. I can see it.
Yeah.
I watch you on Facebook as well, Paula.
Oh,
You would have been very proud of the businesswoman that you are.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're doing great. And I would appreciate it if you would tell your mom that we said hello.
Oh, I absolutely will. That's the first thing I'm doing.
Okay.
She'll be so honored.
Aww.
I know that she has the utmost respect for you too. And I will definitely tell her that Claudia remembered her and mentioned her to you.
She made a huge difference in my daughter's life, and for that and more, I'm grateful.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's when people care about you when you're a little kid, like your mom cared about every one of her students. Kids notice. They just do. And that's what Tony understood. He understood that if he was himself and he was whatever situation he was in, whatever the kid was doing that he felt needed to be modified or whatever, or if they needed a hug or a kick in the drawers, he was going to do it.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. But he knew how to get the best out of people.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's an understatement. It was Paula, it was unbelievable. I'd hear the group the first or second week of a quarter, and I think, maybe we'll be down. And then I'd go in there in 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, holy cow! And I'd go to the concert, and it was electric. It's every quarter. So every semester, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a huge void.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah. The world isn't better because Tony passed away. I can tell you that. What's good is he has you. He has your family. He has his students, and he has those recordings and the concerts and me remembering that 1988 big band. Holy cow, Paul. I mean, I don't remember every concert I've been to in my life, trust me, but I remember that one. He knocked the place. He hit a grand slam that day with the band, right in his hometown. It must have been a really cool experience for him. And we had so many mutual friends. And that was a very, very warm thing for me, coming to a new town and a new school, to have someone that kind of understood my roots too and had mutual friends. And it just worked out great. It has been a beautiful journey. Okay.
You or your
Congratulations.
family.
Congratulations, Paula.
Oh, thank you.
And our sincerest best to you and your journeys and your family, and know that we are here for you as well if you need something. And if it's okay, we love you, and I'm so proud of the woman that you have become. It's amazing to see you today and see in your eyes that fire that was so omnipresent in Tony's eyes. It's there.
Oh, thank you.
It really is.
That's such a compliment. Thank you so much.
He would be beaming. He's beaming up there right now. He's between sets right now. He's looking down at his daughter.
Between sets with Pelly and Joe Parling.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah.
They're jamming up there.
Yeah. Can't wait I can wait to get there, but when I'm there, I will look forward to hearing them again.
Well, you're going to be up there too, playing, I'm sure. So.
I hope so. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. When the time is right.
Yes. Not anytime soon.
No, let's hope not. No.
No. But thank you, and much love back to you and your family as well.